All right, guys, so in this video, I'm going to be giving you a first-hand account as to what it's like to ride a Z900RS with all short stacks in the airbox. And in this case, it's all factory RS velocity stacks that we're talking about. The reason why I'm putting this video together is when I was initially doing my research on this modification, I saw what was being chatted about on the interwebs, but I never saw any first-hand video format account of this. So if you're watching this and you're doing your own research, hopefully this helps you out. So let's talk about the bike, what modifications are done to it now, and some motivations, and then we'll get into the full riding experience here. So 16-tooth front sprocket conversion. It's got a Brock's Street Meg full exhaust. It's got an Ivan's tune. The airbox itself, the lower box has been drilled out for better flow. The upper airbox separator has been taken out for better airbox scavenging, and of course a high flow air filter and the aforementioned RS stacks. Now, before it was tuned with the longer center stacks, and I still wasn't really happy with the way that the bike ran, especially through the mid-range, the upper mid-range, and of course out near redline at 10,000 RPM. The bike just always seemed to be wheezing. It just didn't feel like it was running right for some weird reason. Of course, everything was fine, but I just felt like there was more in the bike. I just felt like it wasn't running like a proper four-cylinder, if you will. Especially, guys, look, if you come from a sport bike background, especially Japanese sport bikes, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that the four-cylinder does need to be able to rev. It needs to be able to breathe for it to feel like a proper sporty engine. And the bike just never felt like that with those longer center velocity stacks. So decided to make the switch and move over. Did the modifications, sent my ECU back over to Ivan's for a reflash to accommodate those changes. And guys, I could not be happier. Now, keep in mind, I'm coming into this modification from already having everything that I mentioned being done to this motorcycle, except for the two longer velocity stacks were still in play. Well, now with the shorter stacks and the reflash, with no other changes being made except for the airbox lower box being drilled, I can't say enough good things about this. One of the myths I want to bust, though, right away, if you're reading the interwebs, people will assume that you're going to lose torque somehow with this modification. No, you don't. I don't really know where that comes from. I guess they think that there's, better torque production with the longer stacks somehow, somewhere. I thought the same thing. Maybe you do too. But the reality is it doesn't lose anything anywhere through the mid-range. As a matter of fact, if you're looking at mid-range as from 5 to maybe 7,500 or 8,000 RPM, the motorcycle feels stronger in that area. And that 5-ish thousand RPM really could go as low as 4,500. That's kind of cruising RPM for these bikes on the highway. Grab a handful of throttle and the bike absolutely takes off. Now, I am rocking that G2 quick throttle, but I've been rocking that same throttle since the bike was stock. I can tell you that now, grabbing that throttle, the bike seems to react more aggressively, more willingly, if you will. And of course, ripping the thing up through RPM, it absolutely shreds to 10,000 RPM, where it would not have done that before. Matter of fact, 10,000 RPM almost felt like over rev with this bike before. It felt like it had made peak power somewhere around 9,250, maybe 9,500, and that might be being a bit generous. Now it is ripping to 10,000 RPM in a way that it never did before. There's quite a bit of power left up top, but again, plenty of mid-range. Again, my calibrated butt dyno couldn't come up with a real idea as far as it losing anything. It didn't trip a circuit in my head going, we lost something down there. No, not at all. Matter of fact, it felt stronger everywhere throughout the rev range. So guys, if you're thinking about doing a full exhaust on your bike, you want to go ahead and also consider this short stack modification as well. It's going to help to complement the entire package as a whole, but more importantly, it's going to make that four-cylinder act like a free-breathing, high-revving engine the way that you may have come into this bike thinking that it could be. Especially if you're coming from a sport bike background, a 4-cylinder sport bike background. Now this motorcycle feels a lot more familiar to you than it did maybe when you first got it, when it just wasn't as willing as it was before. Even with modifications, keeping those short stacks, or rather keeping the long stacks in play, the bike really never felt like it was happy. And now the way that it sits with the shorter stacks and the reflash from Ivan's, the bike feels just so happy to ride. And I'm happy to report that not only, again, does it feel like it picked up mid-range, but I can tell you that just rolling into the throttle on the highway, the bike will collect mile per hour a lot more willingly. And you'll go from 75 or 80 miles an hour to into triple digits and then some more just in 6th gear in a way that you may not expect it to. At least I didn't personally. So overall, it's a win on every account. The bike feels smoother with the shorter stacks as well. The bike feels more willing to rev. It feels like it's making considerably more power from 8,000 or really 7,500 RPM to 10,000 RPM. And I wasn't really ripping on the bike that hard. I was riding it more like I normally do, moderately aggressive, letting the bike just kind of free rev as I went through the gears. And everywhere I noticed a more smooth power delivery with more power on demand. And the thing just felt happier in general. I guess that's the overall value that I want to share with you guys. So with that, post up your comments. Let me know what you're up to with your 900RS, and we will catch y'all on the next one. Hopefully that helps you. That's a wrap. Adios.